Hi, I'm Rich Castillo, and this is the Be Unstoppable podcast.
Welcome to the Be Unstoppable podcast. Me and the team are so glad that you're joining us for this episode. Your support is invaluable, and we'd be so grateful if you could hit the subscribe button. It helps us keep bringing you amazing interviews with top-notch guests. Whether you're watching on Patreon or YouTube, or listening on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Deezer, or any other platform, subscribing really makes a difference. Thank you so much for your support. Let's get back to this episode.
My name is Rich Castillo, and I am a A&R man stroke music industry executive.
Welcome to another episode of the Be Unstoppable podcast with me, your host, Ben Wynter. Today's guest is someone who's been quietly and sometimes not so quietly shaping the future of the music industry for over 2 decades. Rich Castillo started his journey as part of a boy band, but quickly transitioned to behind the scenes, where his true impact would be felt. He honed his skills working under the legendary Jonathan Shalit at Shalit Global before climbing the ranks at some of the world's biggest music companies. He has been instrumental in developing major UK talent and has held roles at Universal Music, Warner Music and Sony Publishing. In 2014, he stepped out of his comfort zone with a trailblazing move to Canada as Director of A&R for Universal Music Canada. He's worked with names like N-Dubz, Stefflon Don, Russ, Tion Wayne, and had a hand in many artists who have shaped the landscape of contemporary black music, including the UK's first drill record to reach the chart summit. But his journey doesn't end with the majors. Rich recently took a bold leap, leaving behind the comforts of major labels to found Lionbear Music Group, an independent label that's ready to take the industry by storm. In today's episode, we'll explore his journey from Nottingham to the upper echelons of the music industry, the risks and the rewards of going independent, and what it means to be unstoppable in such a fast-paced industry. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Be Unstoppable podcast, the Crud King, Rich Castillo. And remember, Unstoppable crew, you have the power to choose your path in life, but always choose to be unstoppable. Rich, welcome.
Thank you. What an intro. Incredible. That's Oscar worthy.
I've known you a while. I know a lot about your past.
No, yeah, mate, that's impressive. Sometimes you say stuff and you don't realise until someone says it back. You go, oh, God. But yeah, amazing. Thank you for that. That's a massive, really good intro. I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
No problem, man. No problem. Let's get straight into it. Let's start at the beginning. You grew up in Nottingham, in an area called Radford. It's a place I know very, very well, as I have family there. And I remember going to visit and thinking, bloody hell, this place is rough, man. What was life like for you growing up? Can you give us an insight into your family life, attending Bluecoat Secondary School, which was, known, and I quote here, full of thieves and criminals.
Oh my God. God, this is like the Nottingham, Sheriff of Nottingham vibes.
What was it like
Robin Hood
in Radford?
I was born in Radford. The first place I remember living was Radford in Nottingham. And obviously when you're born into somewhere, you don't really think of anything. You just know that you just exist. So at the time, I didn't know any better. I've got brothers and sisters. I was in a one-parent household. Mum's from Jamaica, moved over when she was really young. And obviously, not really having a father figure around whilst being in Radford. We all had to sort of figure stuff out. But Radford was a bit edgy. I look back and think it was actually edgier than I realised. But at the time, when you're young, especially black, you just you get on with it. Like, we had a big Caribbean community in Nottingham. I lived in Radford up until a certain age, and then I moved around a little bit. I was in Baseford, Strelly, and then I had a flat in St Anne's on a place called The Chase, which is quite a known area in Nottingham, which can be edgy as well. But I remember I had my own flat at like 17 while I was at college. But yeah, growing up there, it was, well, one thing I will say is in Nottingham, it was so diverse. There was lots of opportunities to do stuff creatively. I was a part of a thing called the Television Workshop, which is like an actors group for people who didn't have a lot of money. They would audition. It was funded by Central Television, or Carlton Television at the time. And they would go around and audition people once a year from all types of background, and they would help train you up in theatre, acting, and filming. So we get auditions for kiddie TV shows, we get auditions for loads of stuff, and I really believe that part of my life really helped me in terms of being able to articulate myself in rooms and be confident about executing ideas. And there are people like Mr. Jam, who's a good friend. He was at the drama workshop with me.
Okay.
There's a famous actress called Samantha Morton who auditioned me as a kid to be in the group. My other friend Toby Kebbell. There's Vicky McClure who was on Call of Duty or Line of Duty. Sorry. There's a bunch of us that all came out of that sort of went off and did stuff. But we were all in what we'd call drama school, but it was free. It was for people who were really talented but couldn't afford it. Sort of.
Those kind of drama schools really make a difference in your adult life, because I similarly to you, went to Anna Shares in London, very famous drama school. And the kind of lessons you learn there in how to articulate yourself, how to project your voice, how to listen to people, they're life skills that you carry into work and all the rest of it.
Massively.
How has that helped you?
I think off the back of, I've always been quite sporty as well. So I think the acting thing, it wasn't just about being able to talk and articulate yourself. For me, it was more about the process.
Yeah.
It was more about, if you're doing a play, you start off with a script, you'll do a read through. So you sort of flesh out an idea, and then you start rehearsals, and you'll go through a rehearsal period, and then you would go through tech rehearsals, and then you do a performance. I've always fallen in love with the process of the start bit right to the end bit, and the sort of the importance of each section, of the sort of understanding the idea, the honing in, the sort of playing and pulling of it, and then delivering a varnished, finished piece that's gone through a process. It's the same thing with music. You put a room together, you find characters, you try and make sure there's energy that sparks off. You come out with something, you review it, you go away, you listen to it in a different environment, you come back to it, you have a conversation with the artist, and then you pick a mixer and you pick someone who sort of can articulate what you want to sound because they've done it before. Yeah. And then you wrestle with the song, and then you get a mastering guy, and then you deliver your baby to the world. Yeah. And then it's very similar to what the is in acting. I think if you're making biscuits or if you were in the steel process, I think that process of diligence throughout, I think in the acting world, it's really good. It's not a surprise that Sabrina Carpenter, who is having the biggest records in the world at the moment, she happens to be on album 6 that not many people know about. Yeah. She happens to be from TV, she happens from acting, where that process is really. So I can guarantee you, whether it's her, whether it's Ariana Grande or Miley Cyrus, their process will be very similar. It'll be meticulous, it'll be professional, they'll apply themselves in a way that a lot of people don't get to understand. Yeah, so I think the acting thing, for me, I think theatre schools, I think all those things, I think there's a massive win in it that people don't really realise, that sort of prepares you for stuff once you grow up and get into the real world. Yeah, it's the same with sport.
I think that's really true. You know, like you said, with sport really teaches you about teamwork if you play team games, or discipline of sport. Speaking of which, you and sport.
Yeah, I love sport.
Talk to us about your black belt in Taekwondo. How did that come about?
Yeah, so I'm a second degree black belt in Taekwondo, and that came from when I was a kid. My brothers all did Taekwondo, and we all had a lot of energy in the house, so we were all always thought we could all fight each other. But so what we would do, my mum would send us to Taekwondo, and then we would compete all over Great Britain just to get it out of our. And we were obsessed with kung fu movies. Okay. Back then, we used to watch on VHS. They were like, I'm showing my age, but it's like Kung Fu Master. There was like Drunken Master. Shaolin Temple, all those sort of things. So we grew up pretending to be these characters. So we were talking, like doing like the miming. Sort of, you talk to me. And we'd go on, even on breakfast, we're like we're pretending we're in these movies, and we were obsessed with that stuff. So we did Taekwondo from a very young age. I think I started when I was like 7 or 8, and we would compete. And because we weren't from affluent background, the way we would sort of subsidise this training is because we had to be good. So we used to do exhibitions at festivals and stuff like that. We do Taekwondo exhibitions, like breaking wood and like sparring, and we go around. We had an amazing instructor called Ralph Minott in Nottingham, who is a black man who was I think he was a surveyor, but did Taekwondo. He was the first black professional I'd ever sort of met in my life. I was 7 or 8, and everyone else around me was wasn't that. So he had a nice car, he had a degree, and he had a black belt in Taekwondo. And I remember thinking, wow, that's like everything I want to do, everything I want to be. And I think the Taekwondo bit was about a discipline, and sort of understanding process. And he used to let us train for pretty much. My mum would always be behind on paying fees, either whether it's Taekwondo suits or training fees. And what I found, and this is what sort of really ground me, I think, is that if you're really good at it, people tend to find a way to help you keep doing it.
Yeah.
So I knew it was really important that when we were there, we were really good. So we would fight all over the country. We won like British championships like year after year after year.
Yeah.
Well, we did ITF and WTF, which is 2 styles of Taekwondo, and we used to compete regularly. And yeah, I've done it since I was a kid. I stopped when I sort of left Nottingham because I couldn't afford it. And once I'd settled in the music business and built up some sort of momentum and settled down a bit, I retrained again when I was like late 20s, and then I regraded as a black belt again, and then started competing again. And now I just do it for fitness.
Okay.
But I love it. I love it. There's a lot of discipline involved.
And how has that helped you in the music industry? We're going to get into more music industry stuff, but I'm just interested and curious how
the martial arts has sort of helped you with your confidence in rooms. Especially, I specialise. I like to think I specialise in sort of conveying black culture to the masses. So I like to go into sort of black culture deeply, and then trying to find a way to sort of scale it out. And we did that with N-Dubz. We did it with Steph and a few others. And I think having the confidence to sort of go in and talk to people and not being too concerned about that, I think helps. And I think the Taekwondo thing helps. It helps me. You can be a bit cheeky and lovely. I think what you find a lot of people that are into martial arts are super friendly and warm. Yeah. Because they don't have that. They don't have to have that edge. Yeah. Because it's not a thing.
There's nothing to prove.
There's nothing to prove. There's nothing to worry about if it goes off. Sort of thing. So you tend to. I find a lot of those people confident, warm, semi-understated, and don't need to be overly brash.
It's like I was listening to LL Cool J talking recently, and they were saying, why did you make all these love records? You're a big guy and you didn't really try and prove how hard you was. And he's like, listen, I hung around with some of the biggest drug dealers in the world. And the one thing I learned about them is they're all very, very polite and very, very nice because they have nothing to prove. So when you have nothing to prove, you can talk about love and you can talk about all kinds of stuff. And I guess it's a similar thing.
I think it's totally that. Yeah. It's totally, you don't need to do that. The scary people I've met in my life, they're never loud and big.
I hear that. So tell us about your journey from Nottingham to London. What made you leave Nottingham?
Okay, from Nottingham. When I was in Nottingham, I did like a national diploma in performing arts, and I auditioned for it's embarrassing even saying it, but I say it, for a tribute band. Okay. So basically, because I was teaching dancing around the Midlands at like gyms and stuff.
When you say you're teaching dancing, elaborate
on that bit. Sorry, yeah. So basically, when I left school, I did my GCSEs. Yeah. And I was doing plays at the time for the acting stuff, and I didn't focus. My GCSE results were awful, and the teachers were like, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know." And then for performing arts, I auditioned for the performing arts BTEC national diploma at a place called Clarendon it's called New College Nottingham now. Yeah. And because I've always danced, so I got an unconditional pass to go. So I was like, right, okay, at least I can go to uni off the back of this. So I went and did a course in performing arts where we did a bit of music, a bit of sound. Sorry, we did sound for theatre, and I did choreography, and I did a bit of musical theatre stuff. And it was like me, 2 other guys, and then it's just women. Mm-hmm. And I spent 2 years doing that, and there used to be audition things on the board. So there was an audition for a group to go to Spain to do all the holiday resorts. So we would do tribute stuff to boy groups. So we would do like NSYNC, Boyz II Men, Another Level, and a few other popular boy band sort of stuff. So we would go around the hotels in Menorca and Mallorca, and we would perform. We had a white van and a PA system, and we spent the summer between Menorca and Mallorca island hopping for about 3 months. Yeah, and we would go to the hotels. We set up our own sound. We'd perform. We'd rehearse our own harmonies. We do choreography, and we'd be like, we thought we were in movies. In our head, we were like music videos, but really we were some cheap holiday resorts doing covers of. So we spent the whole summer doing that, and it was amazing. It was like we had loads of fun. We were all really young, And when we got back, we got a taste for it, and we're like, you know what, we could actually do this.
Yeah.
So we figured we'd go to London, get a big record deal, and be famous. So
Just like that. It's just that easy.
We thought, that's what we thought. We're like, you know, we see these guys on TV. Back then days, it was like Smash Hits Pole Winners Party.
Yeah.
It was like, it was just like five. There were all those groups coming out of the UK.
Yeah.
That was
So it was kind of like the Jingle Bell Ball, but it was Smash Hits
like, I think the Jingle Bell Ball was born out of that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So we were all confident we could do stuff. With myself, I was never a good singer, but I was incredible at like making things happen. So
Yeah.
I would organise the group, I'll black studio time, and I would do all the choreography. I could
There's always a leader in a group, isn't there?
I
the
wouldn't
person
say I was a leader, but I was a driver.
The person that makes stuff happen.
I was very good at making stuff happen. So me and my friend Dean, I think you know Dean.
Yeah, I
so
know
me and Dean sat in his mum's living room, and we got a book called Showcase International, this is like pre-YouTube, and this would list off all the companies in the music business. And we spent 2 or 3 days in his living room on his mum's phone, ringing absolutely everyone.
Wow.
And literally, and we went through literally hundreds of people, and we got a response from 3, maybe.
Yeah.
And I actually think the one who did respond just fancied Dean, but we all sort of jumped on a plane or jumped on a train and went down to London and auditioned. By this point, we'd been in all summer performing, so we could do a cappellas off the heart. We all had our harmonies like stacked. We were like really like on it, and we auditioned, and the girl liked us and said, "Move down to London. We're going to sign you, and let's go." So that's what we did. We all relocated from Nottingham. We got our money together and we moved down to Stratford, not too far from here. And we decided to try and be a group. So we recorded some music, and just as we were about to put out our first song, the label folded.
Oh wow!
So we all moved to London and then realised, which I think was the best lesson I've ever had. And we just had to figure it out. So we were in London thinking we're going to be famous. We were blagging ourselves into nightclubs. We were like doing all you can do to pretend you're doing it. We all had part-time jobs as well. And we had to figure it out.
So how did that experience in the band shape your understanding of the industry from the inside out? And how did that help your transition into the business side?
So it's thankfully, because I wasn't a good singer, and I say this, I'm not saying this to be like humble or whatever, I wasn't a good singer, and because of that I was allowed to focus on the things I was good at, which was making things happen. Mm-hmm. So when I was in Stratford, I was on my dole. I was signing on.
Yeah.
And at the time, I think Labour and government, and there was a thing called New Deal for musicians, which is like basically if you're an artist or want to be in the music business, they would give you your dole and they would send you to college for 2 days a week. So you have to study the area that you want to be in. I don't think it was just for musicians, actually. I think it's for people that specialised in a trade as well. Mm-hmm. So it gives you a bit of a sort of segue into sort of doing your research on an area of business that you want to be in and trying to get a job whilst giving you a little bit of like housing benefit. And so I managed to sort of really, me and Dean was really good at this, at masterminding how to survive with nothing. And like we had like with the chicken shop, you get £1.99 or £1.99 chicken and chips.
Yeah. I remember
we could make £20 go for like 10 days. Like we were like, and you get to the point where it's a sport, where you go past the point of it being like suffering. It's like, okay, right, are we going to do this? And we just managed to sort of turn it into a game rather than turn it into suffering.
Tuna and pasta.
All of it. Tuna can go many ways. Not just pasta, rice and corn too. Old school corned beef, right? All of it. We found ways of and you get to a point, and maybe that's part of my character, is I enjoyed the process. I enjoyed the sort of, right, London's not going to beat me. Once we got dropped from a label, 3 of the guys moved back, and I think Dean moved back for a bit, actually. He moved back for a bit. I refused to leave London until I was paid. I was like, London owes me.
That's the mentality. That's unstoppable.
I was not leaving. I was like, I'm not fucking leaving this city. I was like, I'm not leaving, sort of thing. So my dole officer happened to be on the MMF, which is a stroke of luck.
That's the Music Managers Forum.
Music Managers Forum, yes. My dole officer was on it, and Jonathan Challet had just lost a A&R guy to move to Australia. Mm-hmm. The guy who signed Big Brothers, his name was JD Springback. He passed away, but he was a really good A&R guy. He'd left, and they needed a young black scout to do stuff.
Yeah.
Dean was working at Zara. My other mate, Melvin, who was in the group, was working in a bar. So I've told the story over and over. I borrowed Dean's suit. Because in menswear, they give you a free suit in Zara. So I borrowed his suit.
And he's a bit taller than you.
He's taller than me. Yeah, all right. So I borrowed his suit and I borrowed my mate's shoes. And I went to see Jonathan Shalit at his office. And I explained to him what I wanted to do in terms of I wanted to be in the business.
Yeah.
I also said I'm in a group too if you want to sign this sort of thing as well.
Yeah.
He was like, I don't care about your music. I didn't want to hear it. I need a young scout to come in and help support us. Do you understand how music works? I was like, yeah, of course, yeah. I've just delivered some singles. I understand mixing, mastering. I just gassed him. Basically, anything I'd done in the group, I made out like I'd done all the other stuff. I'm quite observant in the studio. And he was like, okay, I'll let you come and work for me, but for the first month, I'll give you expenses only. So I'll pay for you to come in and I'll pay for your lunch. You can answer the phones. And if you want to go to shows, I'll cover your expenses, but we're not going to pay you yet. It's going to see how it goes. So I was like, okay, amazing. So I left there. I thought, right, how am I going to make this work? So what I did was, I took a job. I came in. I made sure I went to gigs 5 nights a week. So my dinners were always paid for every evening. Yeah. So I came back then, and everything I did from then on was work. I figured if I'm constantly working, the definition of expenses is to sort of like get money back for stuff you're doing for the company. Yeah. So I just paid everything. I do everything for the company. That way you got to pay for everything on me. Yeah. Sort of thing. So I did that, and I think they liked my energy. I remember asking for permission to pick up the phone. I remember like being that nervous about sort of being in an office environment. Cause I never worked in an office environment before. And I ended up having to cover, this is like, just as Big Brothers was sort of fading out and Jamelia was sort of just past, she just did Superstar, that was quite big. And then I had to sort of get involved in the Jamelia project a bit. So she was doing really well in the pop space, but it sort of felt like she'd sort of was distancing herself from black culture. And she's obviously Jamaican and worked with Beanie Man before that. Yeah. So my job
also then... from the Midlands.
Also from the Midlands, from Birmingham. My job then was to try and bring some culture in, which is when I met Harmony. Because Harmony used to work with my group when we were in the group, sort of thing. He gave us our first single when that didn't come out. And he did the remix of one of her top tens, and that's because I got him to do it. And that's the first time she'd been played on Choice in ages at that point. So I started to build relationships, sort of like taking that pop stuff back into culture. Yeah. So Jamie Nelson at the time at Parlophone was her A&R man, who's a legendary A&R guy. He took me under his wing a bit and helped me, and I just gave him access to sort of more of the black culture. And that's how I got in.
The first time I saw you was on reality TV. Totally boy band and being N-Dubz. Yeah. And I just remember seeing this little black guy running around.
With a bald head. Yeah.
Bald head with Jonathan Shalit. And for those who aren't aware of who Jonathan Shalit is, he's a legendary music manager. Charlotte Church, Jamelia, so many people that he's managed both in TV and music over the years. Think Sting at one point. Like he's a legend. And I remember seeing you on screen running around and Jonathan Shalit giving you instructions and you running around. Can you speak to what that experience was like being on TV at that time, knowing what you've just told us, that there was very little money in your pocket, and also the fact that that was pretty much the outset, the beginning of reality TV as we know it. What was that like for you?
It was really eye-opening. As a kid, I'd done a bit of TV, so I'd been on TV a bit, so I understood the sort of the back end of it. But the reality TV was very different because it wasn't scripted. It was basically a producer in the background winding people up, and then pressing, and then saying go, and then turning the cameras on, and you're just like, you're already vexed. People, the work they do behind the screens on these shows is mad. Yeah. Everything you did was on camera, but you're supposed to be natural. So you had to really think about what you said, because you have to say to yourself, oh, everyone's watching, everybody's listening to this. It's like acting out your life in theatre. Yeah. So it's really hard. So it's very easy to fall over yourself or say something that you shouldn't, or in the moment react in a way that maybe you shouldn't. So I enjoyed the process. Was really good. The producers in the background winding people up was the biggest revelation for me. Just sort of how they sort of pick people off and what they do to try and get what they need. It's really interesting. And I think back then they had no sort of mental health aftercare. back then. It was just like good luck afterwards sort of thing. So I think that's changed a lot since then, because people have genuinely got into a bad way over it. But for me, it was a really good process. Like, just delivering records in that environment is really, really tricky when everyone's on camera. Also, getting good creative to commit to actually participating in stuff like that.
What were some of the tactics that they used?
I'd say, like, there'll be an artist in the room. We record a song. We all know who the best singers are. So we know who's going to do the chorus. We know who's going to do verses. We know who's going to do what. And there'll be a certain character who we'd all just tell him not to even turn up to the studio. We'll put your name on it. We'll just be like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
So while he's away, the producer will be like, how do you feel about that? You've sold millions of records. You're part of a massive group. So he's winding up. He's getting vexed. The next day, he's got a face like a slapped horse, and he's annoyed. And then we start to go and do a promo. He's angry. You don't want to be a part of it. We find out what's happened. The producer's like, well, it's the truth. Just tell him the truth, sort of thing. And we ended up making the process really hard, because we were managing as well. We were like across everything from promo through to the recording process, and just stuff like that. Talking when people are off camera and going, is this what normally happens? Are you okay with this? I can see on the song that this person sang this part, this person sang that part. I can't really hear you. You're not really, your vocal's not really up front. Are you actually on it? And these people have got plaques. They've toured the world, and they're like, oh yeah, you're right. I should really be.
So they're messing with their ego.
I mean, the ego thing is obviously be a downfall of everybody, but the ego thing, they lean into that and they manipulate it. Basically, the aim of those shows is the same thing, whether it's The Voice or X Factor. It's a show. Yeah, it's a TV show. People think it's a place to have success as an artist. It's not. It's about the ratings. It's about the deal they've cut with the TV channels that are watching. Yeah. That's what it's about. Yeah. The single sales and artist bit is a bonus. If it works, great. I don't think any of them go in with the intention of failing people, but they're never sort of structured for artists to actually thrive career-wise. Yeah.
N-Dubz.
Yes.
Your breakout act. Your first kind of real moment of success. Yep. They were also a breakout act in the UK black music scene, crossing over into the pop charts. You were instrumental in their rise. You couldn't really mention N-Dubz without mentioning Rich Castillo. Yeah. Can you walk us through the behind the scenes work it took to bring them from the underground to the mainstream success that they had? Yeah,
first I'll say with N-Dubz is, from the day I met them, their work rate was ridiculous. They were extremely sort of focused. They were insular in the fact that they were self-sufficient. They had one person who produces, another person who writes, another one who's unbelievable with delivering hook vocals and melody. And between the three of them, we were able to build something without any third party needed to be involved, which is very rare for any artist. And I think because of that, we were able to sort of keep it on the rails. I think if they needed third-party producers and stuff, I don't think it would have got to where it got to. Daffy from the group's dad put them together originally, and we really got involved once his dad passed away. And I'd been sort of stalking them for months because I was just a genuine fan of what they do. And when it came around to finding a new manager, because they were in a short-term deal with Polydor at the time. Me and Charlotte were, because I turned up to everything, we were a viable option. I met them and they were like, oh, is that border guy who keeps turning up to the shows? We'll go with him, sort of thing. Yeah. So I got them involved. Back then we were posting diaries out every week. Part of my job was to post the schedules for everyone. Okay. So emails were a thing. So they wouldn't respond to it. So I had to go to the house and knock on the doors and be like, you know what you're doing this week? Da, 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 da. It's all like in person. And we spent on that first album, it's an album called Uncle B, we spent the first record going through Camden high-rise flats trying to find, because basically they're going to their mate's house, they record something with like a up-and-coming sort of producer person, and then have bits of songs scattered across Camden. I mean, it was like a trail to find bits. I mean, I remember not having MP3s and trying to turn MP3s into WAVs, and then mastering that and trying to piece together parts of songs to finish them. And it was a bit like herding cats, but the good was so good that the bad didn't feel as bad. Yeah. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. You go to a show, they're put on tons of kids. We were doing under 18s and loads of kids were turning up. And one year we did, I think there was one year, and big up Billy Wood from back in the day. There was one year we did 300 shows in a year. Like some nights you do like 3 or 4. You go from promoter bookers for like 3 shows in around the West Midlands area. We go on at like 8, 9, and 10.
Yeah,
and they work so hard. After a year, we just managed to build so much momentum from those 300 shows, and off the back of that, we were putting records out in between, but they were really engaged, and we built the live from start, so we never had any tour support. You know, you're signed to a label now; they'll give you a bit of cash to help you grow your business. So we had to figure it out from scratch, from under 18s through to arena level, and I actually think it was the best thing that could happen for us, and we managed to figure out how. That's how we met Tim's, who turned into Jax Jones.
Okay.
So Tim's used to be our MD. He was the only person that would do it at the time. Obviously, he'd got a degree in finance and was really good at balancing the books. So we had him balancing the books whilst playing an MD in for us at the early stage of theatre. He will laugh about it. If he hears this, he will laugh about it. But he was instrumental in N-Dubz at the start, just as much as anyone else was.
Yeah.
But also having Dappy and Talisa and Phaser production getting better and better each time with each song. Dappy's dad was an engineer, his brother's an engineer, and he has like dog-like hearing. So when it comes to mixers, when it comes to sonics, he's like as good as anyone else I've ever dealt with in the world. He's incredible.
And how did you manage those characters? Because I remember, you know, once you started having success, I remember being on tour with you guys. I had an artist that you signed, and we went on the road, and N-Dubz were the headline. And I remember one specific day, I can't remember what city it was, and everyone was like, Where's Daffy? Where's Daffy? No one could find it. It was like, where's Wally? Where's Daffy? And then it turned out he had gone to the middle of the city, and there was just some kind of pandemonium happening there. He ended up getting mobbed.
That's a normal day in the
How
office.
did you manage those 3 characters? They were all such strong characters.
It was like herd and sheep. I think initially, the best thing I did at the very start, when I was turning up at shows when no one was there, I built a really good relationship with them. I sort of made it very clear that about my ambitions with them and that I cared about them. And I feel like I managed to break down a barrier of defense with them, which they had with everyone else. I think when I went in and saw them, they listened. I feel like I met all their families. I met their siblings, their families, their immediate circle, and I also gave my life to them in terms of like put my relationships on hold. I didn't do anything else other than make sure they were okay for 5 years, and I just put them at the center of my universe. And I think, even without saying it, I think they felt it, and I think I was able to cut through when I got involved with stuff more so than most people because of the commitment I gave them. And I think in most artists that you'll find that case. And also because I wasn't because I had Shalit in the background as well. Shalit was doing bigger moves like getting them on GMTV early doors when black artists and urban artists didn't really get on there. I was able to commit to them properly, and I think because of my relationship with them, I was able to get them to listen and do things that no one else could. I could turn up at a hotel at 2 a.m. and drag them out of a hotel room and put them in a car, whereas the tour manager couldn't. They just wouldn't listen to him. I can call Dappy's mum, and she can get through to him if I can't get through to him, or his brother or whoever. And I just found a way of getting stuff done and not moaning about it, and I think they appreciated it. And for me as well, because I was trying to make myself in the world, I needed to. My dream was to have a wife and a family and everything else, and I figured if I don't break this group, I don't know what my other route is. So it felt very much do or die for me. In my situation, so I was willing to put up with probably a lot more than people would as well. I had thicker skin. I'd come to London. I had nothing else. I actually got fired just before we put the first album out because I spent too much time on them and I wasn't generating enough money for the company.
Okay.
And then literally 2 months later, it bust.
How did you turn around that moment of being fired into the success that you are now?
I think everyone should get fired. I think it's the best thing that can happen to you, because I think the moment you are 100% dependent on the entity that you're working for, you're going to be a victim. I just think you're going to be you're at the mercy of things that you cannot control, and I think it's a really good exercise. I think if you found an area of work that you love and you're passionate, I think you'll find a way to make it work for yourself. So I think it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
So in that moment, what did you do?
I rolled my sleeves up. I figured what I did, I called everyone I'd done favours for and helped out. I managed to get a consultancy with Charles Gordon. If you remember Charles Gordon.
Yeah, I remember Charles Gordon.
He had a girl group. He gave me a consultancy. He ran an estate agency, so I got a consultancy from him. Also, because All Around the World had sort of picked the boys up, the N-Dubz up.
That's the record label.
The record label. It was a very small event, but because I was delivering the records, I didn't know I was doing A&R. I thought I was just a manager, but I was also putting the sessions together, calling up people like Fraser T. Smith and that to try and get them in a room with my lot to do some sessions. And Matt and Chris decided to give me a consultancy on this. So I got some change from them, some change from Charles, and got my head down. But I was allowed to carry on doing N-Dubz. But I'd agreed a commission rate with Jonathan, but I was no longer part of that company. I'd set my own.
Okay. So making that transition from management to A&R, working with All Around the World, what were some of the key challenges that you faced, and how did you adapt your approach in order to impact two very different environments? Yeah,
the challenges were sort of like, obviously when you're in A&R, it was time basically. I dedicated my time to N-Dubz constantly, and now I'm fighting for survival. The commission wasn't coming through yet on the group, so I had to keep everyone happy basically. I had to keep Charles happy by making sure I was servicing his girl groups and whoever. I had to keep All Around the World happy by at least sending records in every now and then that I wanted to sign. And I had to keep the N-Dubz happy because they didn't like change. They wanted to keep the momentum going too, and they were getting more and more handful with the more money they were getting, sort of thing, because there were more people hanging around them.
Yeah,
there were like loads of friends. Like it was like community centre vibes constantly. So filtering that was quite hard. So I just had to figure it out. Also, I started dating my wife now, and she was massively helpful in the sense of I had an escape. When I was mad, I'd go back to the missus. I'd download, even if she didn't have the answer, I had someone to tell, and then I'd roll my sleeves up, go back in the next day. Obviously, I was quite keen to sort of build a family, so I figured if I get this right, everything else will come. Yeah. And that's what I did.
Okay. The A&R process is often seen as like the magic touch to an artist's success. How do you balance the creative side of nurturing an artist with the business realities of driving commercial success? Because you've already alluded to the fact that, you got fired because you weren't generating enough when you were a manager. But how does that translate as a A&R?
It's not too dissimilar. I think with A&R, you probably get a bit more grace, I'd say. And then I think in any A&R job, you normally get 2 to 3 years, normally. But normally you should get 3 at least, normally. But it depends on circumstances, what presidents are coming in and coming out of the company, how well the company do that. There's loads of things away from that you can't control. So it's tricky. I think... it's like any label as well. You need fast food and you need slow cooked food. You need singles that are gonna like penetrate quickly, and you need to be developing things that people are excited about long term. That's the hard thing for any A&R person, is trying to have both of that. There are a lot of the time there are A&Rs that specialise in a thing, whether it's bands or pop or dance or whatnot. And there are a few A&Rs who can pivot and sort of repeat process in different genres as well. But it's tricky. I think for me, I just did what works for me. And when I joined All Around the World, they were really into singles. So we ended up finding singles. But I say that we signed Charlie Brown at the time, and that was an artist project. Yeah. We had a hit. We had managed to have a top 10 with him. It wasn't their traditional sort of stuff. They normally do Clubland. They do Cascada. They do like sort of northern sort of dance records. But they were really good with me. I think because I delivered on N-Dubz, they just gave me a bit of grace. Yeah. But most A&Rs don't get that amount of time. I think A&Rs need to be allowed to fail a bit. They need to be able to find their rhythm, find their people. We all have our mixers, our producers, our people that we know that when we call them, they're going to take it seriously and they're going to be really honest with you and deliver for you. Mm-hmm. Everyone has their own crew. Okay. It really gives a good insight into the A&R process, which is kind of what we want to understand. I think, and also curation of, for me, A&R is about curating characters in rooms that create good energy, that understand the artist. Yeah. And sometimes you've got to balance alphas with people that are a bit more shy. You have to balance the characters that you've got to balance out when you're putting these rooms together. And it all starts off with your artist and knowing how you get the best out of them. What is your definition of A&R? Because
traditionally A&R stands for artists and repertoire, and, you're tasked as the person that will oversee a project, and
Deliver it on budget.
Deliver it on budget, on budget, and we'll also, pull the whole thing together and sell it to the rest of the label. What is your personal definition of that role, and what do you think you bring to that?
I think being able to articulate a vision to a group of people and have them join the war with you is an A&R's job. I think all of us A&Rs, we try and sign geniuses and hold on for dear life and try and articulate that to the team that are fighting with us for them, sort of thing. So I think an A&R job is to sort of transfer vision and excitement and be able to have people convinced to work their best work with you. I think that's what I think when you're on the floor at a record label. I used to make it every week. I'd walk the floors and go and see everyone. I'd check in on how are you doing? Have you heard about what we're doing with this? But making sure there's an element of goodwill and positivity that's surging through the floor to allow everyone to feel like it's theirs. Mm-hmm. I think ownership. I think everyone feel like they own it. At EMI, I used to do. I think we tried to do it quarterly, but it was every 6 months really. And we would do the A&Rs would present to the label. So I'd get the A&R team to. Get their artists up, get their new music, some stats, a little show reel, and I'll get them to have a conversation with the whole label about their artists. I want people to feel why they signed them, what the vision was. So they'll go in, we go, this is May Stevens. She's had a big viral hit, but she's not just a TikToker. She's been playing piano since she's 16. Did you know that X, Y, Z, and this is why we're sticking with it and we're trying to make it work, sort of thing. There are a lot of people on the floor. There's guys from finance, there's guys from marketing, there's legal, who just sit there and they're just churning numbers out and they don't feel a part of the journey. Yeah. And I think a really good A&R person takes the team on the journey with them. So we're all pulling the same way.
How important is it for them to feel that passion and to understand that passion and not just see it as another number on the spreadsheet?
I think people work better when they feel a part of it.
Yeah.
And I think the things that do the best have normally got some really super passionate people in the background somewhere who will run through walls for it, sort of thing. So I think articulating that and getting that across is really important. And even if it's just little things like the finance guys making sure your invoices are paid on time so that your producer feels happy, or the director, or even the lighting guy who's going to, or the TikTok guy who's going to be the next big director. These young characters that are them having a good experience around your project goes such a long way for me. And I think building that culture is really important. So, yeah, I think that's why I've made sure people present it internally, because I feel like if you feel like it's yours, you're going back for it.
Yeah. So you're all around the world. You're having success with N-Dubz. What happens next?
So basically, all around the world, get offered a job to run Universal's catalogue. So the two MDs, they take the job all around the world, move into the Universal building. When they move into the Universal building, I move in with them. They say, "Come in, you could be our A&R guy too." So I do that. I signed Charlie Brown. This is pre sort of streaming, so they did compilations. So part of their job was to do playlist concepts. So they'll do like massive R&B or Clubland or stuff like that. So. There's a guy there, actually, I should shout him up. There's a guy called Paddy McLean who worked at Polydor, head of streaming. We call him Paddy McStream because he used to work with us in the catalogue thing. So he would help do concepts. Yeah. And what the concepts evolved into what playlists are now on Spotify. So he was a young guy getting involved in sort of like themed playlists and putting songs in to sort of fit a theme to fit a sort of a demographic or character. So I feel like he got a head start on everyone because of that. We were constantly doing concepts, and he was a product manager at the time. He went on to do Polydor, but while I was there, there's a kid called Shawn Mendes, the artist Shawn Mendes. Mm-hmm. While I was there, he got signed to Universal in the States to a guy called David Massey, who was running Island Records at the time, and the Canadians were really frustrated with the US guys running into Toronto and nicking artists and signing them for the world, and the Canadians getting a reduced local rate on the royalties of the artists that were Canadian, but still within the Universal setup. Yeah. So they went to see a load of people, and I interviewed for a role in Canada to try and stem the sort of exit of local talent in Canada
Yeah.
and help them with that process. So I got a job offer to move to Canada, and I just had a baby. I'd been married, just had a baby. My son was like 18 months old, and I just bought a house literally a month before I got the job offer. And me and my wife spoke about it, and then we thought the kid's young enough for it not to have too much impact. So we got on a plane and relocated to Toronto.
And how did you balance such a pivotal career opportunity with your personal life? Like, how was your wife immediately on board? Did it take some convincing? And what were the personal challenges attached to
the personal challenges are obviously having a very young child and not having family there to help with stuff. Even though my family are in Nottingham, my wife's got a sister who's quite local, so we have a bit of support. Moving to another continent without support, especially a place like Canada where everything's very far apart. Sorry, excuse me. It was challenging. We thought about it and we figured like we're young enough to do it and come back if we don't like it.
Yeah.
So we just thought we'd have a go. So we did. We jumped on a plane and we relocated, and it was amazing. We really enjoyed it. We got there and we got pregnant when we were out there. So we had a second child once we got there. So my second child is Canadian. We got there. We found it was challenging. But my missus has always been very supportive and backed it. So we went out there, we made it work, we got amongst it, we built a new friend network, and we ended up winning Juno, like signing artists, doing really well. And what I've quickly found out was there's a good reason why the US guys get all the artists. It's because of primarily the money and the advances.
Yeah. Much bigger.
It's much bigger, and also the population is bigger. It's not just bigger in geography. It's like the population is like 350 or 60 million people, and in Canada there's 35 million.
Yeah.
So and the budgets are literally that ratio. So when you're an artist who's hot, and you want money. So what I try to do, instead of signing stuff for the world, I try to do as many joint ventures as possible. So we had a piece of it properly, a better rate than what we get for what we call ICLA, which is like the intercompany licensing agreement.
Okay.
So I did that for a bit. And then halfway through that, my boss left to join Bell Media, which is the biggest Canadian telco. And I got a new boss, who's a lovely guy. But at that point, I felt like my boss, and I was there to work with him. And we decided to. I called David Joseph, who was amazing. He was just like, "I'll get you back, cool." And that's just when Ben Mortimer and Tom were getting hired at Polydor.
Okay.
And Ben called me.
David Joseph is
the head of chairman of Universal, who was always really good to me in the process. So we did that and came back.
How much of your success do you attribute to your wife and
all of it?
In what way has she influenced and shaped your journey? Like what's the role that she plays both personally and professionally in helping you make these decisions and giving you the confidence to move into these spaces?
My missus has always supported me no matter, like, I've always managed to provide. I've always been able to figure a way of making sure we had a roof over our head and the kids are okay. And she's always given me confidence. She's always pushed me to sort of be brave. And I've always felt like she's always allowed me to feel like home's okay. When I grew up, home generally was quite tricky, and I was always trying to sort of do stuff to make sure I don't have a similar sort of level of poverty, to be honest, as growing up. So she's always been really steady, and I've always felt like, okay, home's okay, I can commit to work.
Yeah,
and I think that in itself is I've never had to worry about home. Mm-hmm. She's always been solid, even with the kids. She's just good with that stuff. I'm not the best with that stuff. I'm getting better. But I've always felt the ability to really apply myself to what I'm doing. I have no distractions the other way. And as long as I communicate well with her, I've never had any real challenges. And I think she's pushed me on a bit. She's got quite, how can I put it? She's got quite lavish taste for stuff. If there's anything on it, she would have naturally picked the most expensive one. Yeah. And when I was very young, I thought, I say young, when we early in our dating process, I started off hating it. And then this is what I do with stuff. I try to find the good in it. So I think, okay, maybe it's not that's too expensive. Maybe I'm just not earning enough money.
mindset.
Maybe God has put her in front of me so that's the bar.
Yeah.
So if she likes it, I should have been able to provide for it. So let me go and sort myself out and not look at her. And that sounds mad.
Yeah.
But I start to figure out what can I do for that not to be a problem.
It's mindset. It's losing the poverty mindset of, oh my God, that's too expensive, to actually, that's something that I can afford. I just need to work harder.
Yeah. Why look at it? Someone else has it. I do it all the time. I walk down the street and I get angry. I look at buildings and I see, like, in my head, I see stacks of money.
Yeah.
It's cash. And like, that's not mine. He's robbing me. He's stealing from me. Like, in my head, and I just create these scenarios where I have to sort of like put it back onto myself rather than blame everyone.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Absolute sense. Similar in mindset with that.
Yeah.
In that respect. That's amazing that she helps you to grow in that way.
Yeah. But she's, listen, we're not perfect. We have our days. Like, but that's what marriage is, and that's the beauty of it as well. That's what marriage is. That's what work is. It's bumpy. It's tricky. It's difficult. I always say to my friends in the business, like, when it's painful, run at it.
Yeah.
Just run at it. Just get through it as quickly as you can. Keep it moving.
Yeah.
Don't let it fester. Don't let it sit. Don't hide from it. Same thing with all the problems we have with N-Dubz. Any of the artists we work with, I feel like I come into my own when shit goes left.
Yeah.
Like, generally, and that's what's kept me on the pitch.
So, having spent time in Canada and the UK, what are the key differences between the two markets, and has working in international environments helped shape your outlook on the wider industry?
Definitely. I think I moved to Canada thinking, Drake, The Weeknd, Tory Lanez. I was thinking, black music should be quite straightforward.
Yeah.
And it really isn't. Canada, when I was there, the radio system was quite old school. So they'd only play top 40 chart music that was already certified and moving internationally. Anything new and emerging. They do have CanCon, which is the sort of their legal right to have a set amount of Canadian music in Canada. But the problem you've got is they have so many superstars that they eat up their space for emerging Canadian artists as well. So the CanCon thing was really tricky. Getting things started from scratch that you just liked was really hard. We didn't have one extra. We didn't have Radio 1. Radio 1, you have no idea how ahead they are globally. If you go to any other territory, there's not another place that I don't think in the world where you would hear emerging stuff that's not already got big stats and is being played on big radio stations. That is just good art. That is culturally important. So big up Radio 1. But when I was in Canada, I was like, wow, I've got artists that I think are really cool. They've got good teams around them. It's from zero. So the sort of building the story bit was quite hard. You go into radio and they're like, we only do top 40. So you got to try and then go into America, build some sort of story, come back in. It's really hard. It's breaking out, and that's why, and it's part of why they signed to the US as well, because they have enough budget to sort of wait it out and build. But it's really hard. So when I came back to the UK after being there, I was like, wow, I didn't realize how good I had it.
Yeah, you had a whole new appreciation.
I had a whole new appreciation. I think the sort of routes to success in the UK are loads. There's so many. In Canada, there's a massive funding and grant system.
Yeah, they're incredible
which
funding
is unbelievable.
Yeah.
There's good and bad in that. The good is that young people get an opportunity to buy equipment and decide whether they want to be producers and things really early. If they want to tour, they can draw down a fund. They can do loads of things. The bad about that is there are a bunch of artists that are making a living, thinking they're artists, touring around Canada that can't sell records and never have. Yeah, probably never will because the music isn't good enough. But I've managed to mastermind the grant system, so they're able to sort of just exist. And I think that can be dangerous. That sort of the idea of breeding mediocrity, I think, is very scary. Which is what the sort of like cutthroat territories sort of manage to cut out, because you don't break through unless you built a proper story.
Yeah. Throughout your career, you've taken some massive risks. Yeah. I recall you signing an artist that we did together, Jaya. Yeah. First British South Asian female signed to a major label this millennium. That's a huge risk.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know that. How do you make tough decisions in an industry that's constantly changing, and how do you handle moments when those risks don't pay off?
But yeah, listen, firstly, they never all pay off. But the ones that do, you'd hope to cover the ones that don't. I think I've never had anything, whether it's when we did the Stefflon Don deal, whether it's the Tion Wayne deal, even the recent Chasing Status deal, whether it's any, I've never had any success without really putting your balls on it.
Yeah.
And looking doubtful finance guys in the eye and explaining to them that this is
it's going to make sense.
My space. Trust me, please, just trust me.
Yeah.
Please, just trust me. I remember Stefflon Don when we did that deal at the time. It was a mad deal. We came out of the gate swinging. We knew it would do or die. We never had the song that actually was the hit when we signed her. We got it afterwards, but she was so hot. And I believed in her. She, like her or not, she's an incredible artist. And I've never had any wins without it looking like do or die. This is why I've moved around companies. If I'm not happy or whatever, I've always backed myself to figure it out. I've always felt that way. So I don't think anybody has any real success without any real risk. I feel like you've almost got to look the end in the face to know what winning is.
We've heard a lot about that Steph deal. What did that look like? I
can't go into numbers, but it was aggressive for the time. For the time, it was a madness, absolute madness. But no regrets at all. I got literally on the way out of doing the deal, the day we signed, the following morning, I saw a certain person that may want to be on this podcast before. And he was like, "You are absolutely bonkers. What are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, everyone else was in, and we won it, so it is what it is." And I believe in her. So
yeah,
and we did it. We made obviously the journey of that was quite tricky, but we had success. It made money. A lot of the bigger stuff was like the feature stuff we did.
Yeah,
whether it be Bum Bum Tam Tam, whether it be Louis Fonzi. We had other stuff. Like people don't realise that if you look at the streams, we're talking hundreds of millions of streamers on other stuff outside of that. So that's what people often forget when they do these deals. A lot of this, the feature stuff can be just as lucrative as the sort of main stuff.
And do you factor that into when you're looking at an artist? Do you factor that in and go, okay, this artist could potentially do X as a individual artist by themselves, but if I can put them into these features with A, B, C, and D, then we can generate Y.
If we forecast against features, we forecast against potential ancillary income from touring, from all sides of it. Wherever there's potential revenue, we and that we can get rights or participate in rights on, we will definitely forecast against that. And that's how we get to a number.
Okay,
even sync to a degree.
Okay, and how important is sync for you as an A&R?
For me, I mean, it's super helpful. It's really helpful. Sync can be the difference between something working and not sometimes. I've never had a big enough sync for that to have been the reason for the artist working. But sync has sort of made deals work and kept deals in play when we're questioning the sort of P&L stuff moving. So I think sync can be an integral part. If you look at the artists over the years, I think it's Tom Walker who did the Bravia TV thing that broke him. There are many sort of times where a sync has sort of put an artist on the map.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important and it's good revenue. But also, as long as it's on brand, I think respecting the brand, your brand as an artist, is really important. I think a good sync agent would understand that, and I think that's really important.
You've worked at some of the biggest companies in music, Warner, Universal, Sony. What's the biggest change you've noticed in the industry over the years, and what's your view on where it's heading now?
Biggest change, I feel like the real music people, when I say real music people, I'm talking people that can really influence the end product of a song, of a sort of like creative sort of journey. I think they're getting less and less. I think they are having to go away and build their own things in general. I think a lot of these companies have been IPO'd, and I think the emphasis on putting a magnifying glass over how money is spent within these labels has got really sort of aggressive in the last sort of 3 years, which is sort of taking a lot of the sort of culture and sort of love out of it. I understand that if the shareholders that sort of have stock and want to maximize their share price, and I totally get why people have to look at it and make sure the business makes sense. But the beauty of what we do and the sort of like the romance of what we do, I think is fading. I think at majors, I think at indies, there's an opportunity to really build that side of it again. So I think it's a weird time. It's like there are some amazing people still at the labels. There are loads of like incredible people, but it feels like it's getting less and less and less globally, which I think is a bit of a shame. But I also think, like I said, looking for the good in it, I think we're going for a real point of reset. I think it needs to go through this in the same way where you have like phases of like black music being really popular commercially, and then it goes, and then it goes away for a bit. It goes quiet, and everyone goes, "Oh, black music's not really happening," and then Dave will turn up with something that's just a madness.
Yeah,
and then everything goes. I think everything works in cycles. So I think we're at a reset point, and I think there's going to be a bunch of things cooked the next 3 to 4 years that are going to be leading the industry, and now's a really good time to get your head down.
I am in agreement with you pretty much, because you're seeing a change. Like if we look at rap music, for example, there's a real saturation of girls shaking their booty with pre-written lyrics that somebody's going, here, spit this. They haven't honed their craft as rappers, and then they're just coming out, putting something out. And I think that the Drake and Kendrick battle has really whetted people's appetites again for lyricism, for the creativity of rap, for understanding delivery, cadence, all the rest of it. So I think it's going to actually bring the art form back to the fore.
It's the time of the purist. Yeah. We're in that phase now where it's like substance, it's about depth, it's about cultural importance, it's about art. It's things that you sort of like. I think we're in the legacy phase. Everyone's in legacy. Like we want to do stuff that I always say, I want to be a part of things that outlive my lifetime in some capacity. And I think we're at a time where the challenge with that is that stuff isn't fast food. It's not quick. So if you're that type of person at a major company, it's tricky. It's very hard. If you're used to flinging songs out every week and 1 in 30 stick and that pays for the rest, that's fair. I think the majors all day do it. That's your sport. You've got enough catalogue to support that. That's great. If you're someone who is really like to dig in and take your time with artist proposition and really deliver proper artist stuff, unless your president can get away with it, if you're an A&R person or a young creative, it's really hard. It's harder than it's ever been, I think. Yeah. Right now.
Yeah. Speaking of black music, you've been at the forefront of developing talent in the UK black music scene for quite a while. What's your perspective on the evolution of the grime, the hip hop scene, now the rising R&B scene and new jazz scene over the last decade, and where do you see it heading in the next kind of 5 years?
I think it's just going to get bigger and better. I think there's a phase, I was talking to someone earlier about this, about the rap scene in the UK at the moment. There's a bunch of really savvy young managers and artists that are really good with content, that are really good at sort of scheduling and understanding algorithms and stuff like that. And I think there's some really hardworking young rappers coming through. I think in terms of like the depth thing, the sort of like digging in on the artistry sort of thing, I think that still isn't quite where it should be. But I think there's a lot of amazing young sort of rappers and R&B artists coming through. I also think because of the virality of everything, the world's flat now and we can sort of interact with other territories better than we've ever been before. The youth culture are deciding it. Before, we'd have to go into territory by territory, present to their head of marketing and say, this guy's amazing, he's sold out tickets. You do a full-on tap dance for everyone. Now, the kids are on TikTok chatting to each other. They're meeting up, they're shooting their own content, they know when to post, they're flinging it out, they're creating all this heat, they're generating money, and they haven't left like in London. They haven't had to. And then the clever ones do. The Senchers, the Leo Stay Trills, the Karaokes, they jump on a plane, they go to the States, they go to France and go to the local rappers and do that. Yeah. And by the time they get there, they're already known because they've been, like, the virality of it, this sort of, the internet has saved them a lot of painful conversations, which labels have had to have over the years. So there's a massive opportunity. I think it's the first time ever where a local artist can have global success without having to employ an army of people to go and pitch for them. I think that's really exciting, and I think that's only going to get better. And I think that will get refined, and that art thing will come through eventually. And I think it's going to be amazing. I think they're going to generate more money than ever.
I think it's an exciting time in the business.
It's almost like a massive part in history right now. Like it's really important. The youth own it.
Yeah.
Like it's never been. I don't think they've never had that much control before.
Yeah, it's funny. We had Mark Henry on here talking about Nux, and he was saying about how he was able to create a whole different model around that artist and just do things differently. And I think it's such a great time to be able to do that.
But these guys are making money themselves now. It's like before you had to tap dance at the labels to these senior guys who had no interest. These people that would rather be at a guitar event, listen to rappers who they wouldn't let their kids near ever. I mean, that's the real. So it's a different time.
Yeah,
it's a different time. I still wish there were more black people in senior roles.
Yeah,
at labels. I think there's less and less. I think there's less now than there was before Black Lives Matter. I think there was like an initial sort of we're supportive, and then all the sort of IPO stuff has happened, and then they're gone who's first to get it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, cool.
How do you feel about that? Because obviously, there was a lot of noise made, the black squares happened. And as you said, there were labels that were handed out to black execs. There were
I've got an opinion on that. But...
There were promotions. We want to hear your opinion. There were promotions, and then now we're seeing a lot of black executives being let go. Most of those labels no longer exist.
Yeah.
Let's hear your opinion and thoughts on that.
My opinion is, at the time, it was really cool to do because of what was going on in the narrative, and I think it all boils back to the IPO stuff and stock price and perception around these bigger companies, because that's what money is in that space at that level. And so they all had to do something positive, and I think everyone attempted to. I think they've empowered a lot of people who have had a bit of moderate success, or even quite a lot, but hadn't had any, hadn't spent meaningful time building their craft. I think I'll speak about the one that did really work, the one that's been amazing. And that's not just because of Black Lives Matter, but the Since 93 guys.
Yeah.
You've got Glyn and you've got Ricky, who are seasoned. I mean, seasoned beyond seasoned. Glyn has spent 10 years inside a major. He's done campaign after campaign after campaign. Ricky has been one of the best managers the country's ever seen, and he's grown into his role. That's one of the cases that did work. There were many other cases, which I won't say, where they've got people in there who are good at maybe A&R, maybe a good manager, but haven't managed teams before, haven't been the epicenter of running a campaign, or had to manage budgets before, or hiring people, or so infrastructurally. I think some people thought you could just give them some money and they'll sign stuff, and then we just have success.
Yeah,
and there isn't any success story like that ever. They come from people that have drawn on experiences they've had, that have worked within an environment that have allowed them to be able to understand how to deal with the process of putting out music properly. It's an art, like it's an actual skill. Like it's not easy just to assume because someone's had a platinum record before
that they can run a label.
They can run a label. It's crazy, and I think yes, they should get labels, but you should put GMs in there that have had experience. Make sure you're doing bi-weekly meetings to make sure there's structure within the company, and you're helping them troubleshoot when it's tricky. I think that's really important. From what I've seen, I don't think that's happened. So I think people should get label deals, but I just think the infrastructure has to be there if those people are not experienced.
Yeah. Or they need to get training. Like I know a lot of labels in the States, they will send their execs to go and do business training, an MBA, whatever it is, give them 8 months and go, okay, you're going to have this label, but you need to do this for 8 months first. And that was kind of lacking in that process.
Yeah, it didn't. I mean, the labels more so now do executive coaching.
Yeah.
I've had it. I know a bunch of people that do. Yeah. So they do contribute towards that in its form. But I feel like that's one thing. Running a business, I think you cannot underestimate. That's not a joke. That's a real thing to do. That's not easy. And I think people should be equipped with the tools if they're given that sort of responsibility.
I agree completely. You signed Tion Wayne.
Yeah.
First drill UK #1 record, Body.
Yeah.
How did it feel to have that success, that milestone moment, and then following on from that, for Tion in his documentary to kind of say there wasn't necessarily the support coming from the label for that record, or the belief for that record?
Success has many fathers and failure is an orphan. So I think there are many artists who feel that way. To be fair to Tion, he's a driver. There are a few artists, the other artists that sort of have the manager or someone behind the scenes who are really sort of pulling lots of strings. But Tion, when it came to RD, when he H on the other record that he did before we were involved, like he goes out and finds these people. He's active as heck. Like he's really present and apparent. So he's a real driver. He does stuff. Obviously, someone has to pay for these things. Someone has to put these out. We still have to do a marketing campaign. We still have to sort of with the remixes. We've got to go and do the deals with, like there's other stuff in the background that you have to do to deliver what we did. We did about 10 versions of the song. We're about 1 billion streams in at the moment on the record. It's about 900, 800 million through the remixes and whatever. And that wasn't just down to one person. But without Tion, without Russ, there is no record. Like I give him full credit. He can say it was all him. It was him and Nino, Terry, Glenn. Without that setup, that record doesn't happen. But for me, like I saw an army of people, including Austin Dabo, including Lils, and all the crew in the background, swinging, fighting, and wrestling to make sure this thing popped off. And Ed Howard, to be fair, as well.
It's funny because I was having a conversation yesterday with someone and they were saying how hard you guys were fighting to make sure that TikTok were really, really behind that record.
Oh, we chased. I mean, to be fair, that's another thing. I could give it to Tion. That transition thing, I forgot the director, but the transition that we did for that video, I think it was Tion on one of his crew. That came from him, like fully, like absolutely. And that, as soon as that started happening on TikTok, we didn't even know what we were doing. Like, it just turned to a trend. We didn't know what a trend was before that point. Before that point, we didn't know you could use TikTok like that. And once it did, and random kids up and down the country started doing this thing, the transition, it started to move. So yeah, you learn over the years not to expect everyone to be like, and also it serves the artist a lot better saying, "It's all them." It always does, sort of thing. But to be fair to Tion, he's a driver. That's why he signs somewhere. I think, like I said before, our job is to find geniuses and hold on for dear life. Yeah. And that's what you do. You find these characters that are driven, that get it, that can articulate their vision, and you back them. And sometimes, there's many times that we were trying to get him to do other songs before that thank God we didn't. They would have tanked. They weren't that great at all. Like, we were just trying to we'd spent so much money, we wanted to get the records out, and he was strong with it. I give him his full credit. He was strong with it. He said no to the other stuff. He said, "This is what we're doing. You're either on board or you're not," and we got on board. And that was it. Yeah. But every hit you'll see, there's stories like that. Yeah. I could take out the top 10. You go and talk to all of them on the OCC today. You'll find stories like that.
You've had a front row seat to the rise of digital platforms, streaming, and social media, and how it's shaping music careers. How's that changed the role of A&R, and how do you think these shifts have impacted artist development process?
Are you talking about like streaming and how that's...
Streaming, social media like TikTok, Instagram, all these platforms.
Yeah, it's massively changed everything. Our sort of marketing and digital strategy around these sort of things have been massively changed. There was a time where you could have a billboard and a TV ad. And when we were doing N-Dubz at the start, it was like we'd basically, when X Factor was on, all our spend was basically on a TV ad between adverts on X Factor, and then that's your marketing, and then you stack this retail, and then the rest of it comes back. Yeah. Now it's totally different. So we have to look at it through a younger lens, and we have to strategize around. We have people that sort of schedule timings for artists to sort of post stuff. We have a marketing team that are way more savvy with online sort of platforms. And yeah, it's totally changed. It's absolutely changed. But this is it now. This is like when we're signing new artists now. It's like we have to take that into consideration. We have to sort of sign artists that are native to these platforms, that understand it, that understand what the importance of it and how to work it properly. So, if an artist now doesn't understand TikTok at all, or he's not even willing to sort of entertain it in some way, it's a massive flag.
But some artists, playing devil's advocate, some artists might not be a TikTok artist, but they're more engaged on a Instagram, or they might not even be engaged on an Instagram or a TikTok, but they might, be a gamer and engage on Discord or something like that. Are these things that really make a difference to your decision to engage and sign artists?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, what's really important, even if they're not native or want to do it, I mean, it's really helpful if they are. If they're not, but they understand the importance of it.
Yeah.
I think that's a difference. If they can't do it, then our job, whether it's a manager or a label, is to fill the gaps and to find characters that can help with that area of it. But the artist still has to come to the table. He has to do the days of sort of recording and posting and all that sort of stuff. So I think the main thing is having artists that understand the importance of it. If they're not native or want to do it, then we can figure that bit out.
Yeah.
I think that's a key part of our marketing strategy and sort of allows us to sort of really raise the profile of the artist whilst in campaign. So for us, it's really important.
And there's an idea out there that if you're not on these platforms, you're not going to get signed. Is that something that you agree with? Is that something where you're like, well, actually, no, I'll pick up an artist if I just think they're amazing?
I think you look at it two ways. I've had this conversation before about artists that are like, well, I'm just an artist sort of thing.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is you want someone to take a risk on you who might get fired for signing the wrong things, who has probably a family and responsibilities.
Yeah.
And are trying to make a living doing this side of it, and you don't want to do anything to do with social media or TikTok or help them sort of raise your profile. I think personally, unless you sound like Adele or whoever or someone of that level, I think I would just entertain it. If you're not willing to engage in that space and respect the process of where we are in the world right now in terms of trying to break you as an artist, then I probably wouldn't entertain it.
And do the numbers make a difference? So if you have something, if you might have a TikTok following, you might have an Instagram, but your numbers aren't great.
No, I don't think that matters. I think the willingness to engage, I think we can sort of help you with better content. We can help you sort of refine what you do better.
Yeah.
I think it's about willingness. It's about willingness to sort of understand that is an integral part of articulating yourself as an artist.
Yeah.
I think that's more important. I don't think the number, because they don't, depending on what stage you're at, I think it varies. I don't think the numbers I personally don't think the numbers are that important. If their numbers are big, that's a great sign.
Yeah.
If they're not big, but the artist has a compelling story or it's just something that captivates you, then that's a whole different, then you work on it and you build around that.
Yeah. You've experienced some major wins, but inevitably there's been some setbacks too.
Yeah.
Can you share a time when things didn't go as planned and how you navigated through that? And what did that teach you about success and about failure?
Wow, that's a good question. Things that didn't go to plan. Most things don't. Most things don't. I thought I'd go to Canada and not come back, and then I did. I thought I'd be at Atlantic for 10 years, and then I wasn't.
Yeah.
And then I thought I'd be at EMI for a longer period of time, and now I'm starting my own label. So, like, there are loads of things that don't quite pan out the way you thought they were. I think ultimately, change will always happen, and I think it's about how you deal with it and sort of staying focused and positive. And I think in terms of things that have gone wrong, there's been loads of albums that should have come out. There are songs that we signed that we thought were going to go. I had a song with God, it's bad. I had a song, I think it was called Ringtone a few years ago with Dr. Vades. Okay. It's how I met Blanco. Yeah. Who I love all of those guys. But we had this ringtone song, and we'd sort of like semi-taken, I shouldn't say this online to be honest, but we taken a ringtone sound and made a rap tune around it. I was convinced it's going to be bigger than Crazy Frog. Like, in my head, this is going to be the biggest thing ever. And it's just tanked. And I spent months telling everyone it was going to be the biggest thing on earth, and then this didn't happen. Really humbling. Yeah. But then Blanco turned. Then we extended with Blanco. We did more Blanco. That started to turn into something real. Yeah. And then obviously I leave, but Blanco's gone on to do incredible things, and I think he's one of my favourite rappers in the UK. And I think that was the first time he stepped out of his sort of like drill, sort of like street space in terms of the tone of what he did, and he was leaning more into anime and more sort of like cooler left to centre. I think that song for me transitioned him out of one space and helped him be viable in another. And So there was some good on it looking back. But yeah, I just think that the L's are really important. L's are really important. You learn more from that than you do from any success.
What would you say is the biggest L that you took that gave you the biggest lesson?
I think the biggest L I ever took, I gave it a big lesson, was when I got sacked just before N-Dubz bust.
Yeah.
I think that was the best. I think because I was young enough for it to sort of. I think when you're young, you're supposed to mess up a bit.
Yeah.
You're supposed to try a few things and get it wrong and learn from it. And I think for me, I was so confident in that group at that time. And I mean, everyone was telling me I was an idiot, but I remember I believed in them wholeheartedly because there's something in my tummy. I have to back this. And I feel like, look, off the back of that, ever since that, I've not been afraid to sort of, this is about, you can say, I bounced around labels loads. When it's not right, I just got out. And I want my energy to be where I can be useful and constructive. And if it's not, regardless of who's there, I'd rather be in a different space.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to roll the dice on myself.
Yeah. As someone who's always looking for the next big thing, how do you keep your creative vision fresh? What inspires you? And how do you stay ahead of the curve in such a fast-paced industry?
I think trying to being around young people that are really engaged in culture. I think that's really important. Even today, I brought someone in to meet you.
Yeah.
But sort of keeping my lens young by trying to help young people as much as possible. I think it's reciprocal in the fact that I can give some experience and help give people a bit of structure and some know-how, and in return, I get a bit of vision, a bit of understanding, and a bit of like up to speed and up to date views on what's going on in the music world. I think so. For me, it's about young people and just making sure I'm constantly in contact and in conversation and listening and going to studios and traveling as well. Traveling is really important. Going into Europe, going into the States, and just trying to stay amongst the fight.
Yeah. So you've recently stepped out of the major labels.
Yeah.
Lionbear Music. You've been a key player in the major setup for a couple of decades now.
Yeah.
So you're entering a whole new space. You're venturing into the independent space. What motivated this shift? And can you share the story or the meaning behind Lionbear Music Group? Okay,
so Lionbear, basically, actually, my wife started off with Lionbear Films. She written a few scripts and sort of shot some short films and won some awards for it. And we had Lionbear Films about, I think, 4 years ago. And Lionbear, I've got two boys.
Yeah.
One's Leo the Lion, the other one is Shawnee Bear. And that's Lionbear. My two boys who we go to war for every day to try and provide and make sure they're okay. So born out of that, a bit of a family affair. And obviously I've been in the business for such a long time and I've worked across so many projects and I've made a lot of people a lot of money. I've made decent money too.
Yeah.
But I figured legacy-wise, I've just had a daughter. And
congratulations.
Thank you. I've just had a young daughter and it was a really sobering moment when we found out we were having another child and it was going to be a little girl. And I remember thinking, I really want to hand something back to my family, and I want to be able to build something with legacy. And at the moment, I've got loads of plaques and loads of awards and stuff, but I don't actually own much other than my house. And I thought if I can pour all my experience I've had over the years into something that I own, that I can sort of do in a fairer way, and build partnerships with artists rather than have them just signed to me, then that's what I wanted to do. So obviously there's been a lot of merger stuff going on at EMI and Universal and other places, and the timing of this just worked. And even when I joined EMI though, I told my wife that Joe Charrington would be my last boss. Yeah. Because I'd worked with I think I've sort of done the world tour of bosses. I've done everyone from Tom March to Ben Mortimer to Ed Howard, Bryony, Joe Now, and who was the last? Oh yeah, I did Randy Lennox. I've done loads of like heavyweights bosses, and I got to a point where I feel like I've sort of topped out on learning from that, and it's about me building something and giving something back to younger executives. So I'm getting a bunch of young people to work with me, and I'm going to go and build something meaningful, and I'm going to do something that I feel will be credible and will stand up in the next 10 years.
Yeah. So what's the plan for Lionbear? What is the label looking like? Do you have artists?
Yeah, so
what's
so the plan is we're called Lionbear Music Group. So I'm going to manage a few bits. I'm going to primarily focus on records. So we're signing stuff that is going to be really sort of slow cooking, sort of long artist proposition stuff. We will do a bit of single sort of stuff, but ultimately our legacy stuff will be based around the artists that we're going to take our time on. We're in the middle of signing quite a few things. I won't say yet because we're in contract form. But yeah, so yeah, we're just going to be building out stuff that similar to the stuff I've been signing for years. Basically, yeah. I'm going to dip back into my proper palette and sign artists and build artists that I love.
Excellent. And what one of the things we get into on this podcast is we really try and delve into the business and understand the deals. What type of deals are you looking at? And I'm not talking the monetary, I'm talking in terms of, you mentioned partnerships. What do they kind of look like?
Yeah, we're talking about partnership. We're talking about building business together, which is like, for me, these are 50-50 deals where we both build. You bring the talent, I put in some finance and know-how, and we figure it out together and we build from there. Obviously, when in management, it's different. If I manage this stuff, you get normal commission. But I believe in partnerships. I believe in both people taking the risk and sort of growing together. So we obviously it varies depending on what artists we are working with. But yeah, I want to build partnerships and help build people's businesses whilst building mine.
What's your experience with the independent sector been so far, and how do you anticipate things will change now that you're stepping into it more fully?
Yeah, my experience so far, I've been in and out. When I first joined All Around the World, we're pretty much an independent going into Universal, so I had a bit of experience with that. I've had a label deal before with Universal many years ago, and so I had a bit of sort of experience putting records out on my own with my business partners then. So I've got a bit of experience with it, and obviously I've interacted on feature stuff. So when I've got artists where major labels that have feature artists that are on indies, I've dealt with them quite a lot through that sort of angle. But in general, I'm looking forward to having the freedom of sort of getting rid of a lot of the red tape and making decisions and being able to be more nimble and move fast and follow passion a bit quicker, and being really creative around how we roll records out rather than it being pretty much cookie cutter sort of stuff. I'm looking forward to the creative dive that we're going to go on the sort of journey of putting music out.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah. Welcome to the independent sector.
Yeah, so I'm expecting it to be savage, crud, hard, difficult, painful. Like I said, I'm going to run at it. And
it's a lot of fun.
I imagine it being fun too. I'm looking forward to it. I'm like, I've wanted to do this forever, and I've now got enough going on for that to be okay.
So how are you feeling about navigating this new space after being in the majors for so long? How are you feeling?
I feel like let's have it. I feel like sort of, it's like anything I do, I'm just going to attack it. And I feel really confident. I'm not expecting it to happen quickly. I'm not at all. I'm expecting it to be tricky. I'm expecting... we're not just going to turn up winning awards and having hits. I know that's not the play, but I feel like if I do it right, which I intend to, and I surround myself with the right characters, I think I've got an opportunity to do something life-changing.
Finally, we're coming to the end of this really good conversation. It's gone super quick. With all your experience, what does being unstoppable mean to you? How's that mindset driven your career and shaped the way you approach both your personal and your professional life?
Yeah, for me, being unstoppable means being relentless, not shying away from tricky conversations, not taking things personal, not having my ego get me into too much trouble, but also using it to make sure I stay at a certain level. For me, being unstoppable is about an attitude and about an energy. I think about keeping that energy and attitude going, being respectful and trying to help as many people along the way without hindering my progression. I think that's what being unstoppable is for me.
Yeah. Listen, Rich, it's been really good talking to you. I could do another couple hours of this. There's so much more we could get into, but It's been brilliant. I've got such an insight into A&R, such an insight into your journey, your career, your life. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate having you here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Rich. Remember, you have the power to choose whatever you want to do in life, but always choose to be unstoppable. For more bonus footage from this interview and to find out more about A&R, make sure you're signed up to Be Unstoppable, you're following us on social media, and you check out the Patreon. Go there now for that extra bonus footage.